You know, every year we're surrounded by Christmas traditions, things we just do. But what if I told you that one of the most iconic symbols of the whole season has a story that's way more radical and surprising than you could ever imagine?
I'm talking about the Nativity Scene, of course. I mean, you see these little tableaus absolutely everywhere. But the story of the very first one, it wasn't about decoration. It was about a man who wanted to make a story from 1,000 years ago feel real, right here, right now.
I mean, think about it. The Christmas season is just packed with traditions, trees, gifts, carols. They all have their own cool histories for sure. But we're going to zoom in on just one because its origin story is, well, it's something else. We're talking about the Nativity Scene.
Today, these scenes are a given, right? From those simple wooden sets you put on the mantle to these huge life-size displays in the town square. They're a staple of the holiday, a quiet, visual reminder of the Christmas story. Now, the tradition as we know it, it really just exploded in the 13th century. It spread across Europe like wildfire. So you have to ask, how did a global phenomenon like this even start? Well, the answer takes us to one specific man in one specific place with a very specific and kind of radical idea.
So let's set the scene. I want you to picture this. We're in a town called Greccio in Italy. The year is 1223, and a man has just come back from Rome with this powerful vision burning in his mind.
And that man was Francis of Assisi. Now, he wasn't a king, he wasn't a pope, but his intense desire to experience his faith in a real, tangible, physical way was about to change Christmas forever.
This quote pretty much explains everything. He told his friend, a local guy named John, what he wanted to do. He said he didn't want to just tell the story of Jesus' birth. He wanted to see it, to feel it, to understand the raw, physical reality of it all with his own bodily eyes. This was about empathy, you know, not artistry.
So, with only about 2 weeks until Christmas, the plan was a go. His friend John rushed to get a space ready, and get this, not in a nice warm church, but in a cave up in the hills outside of town.
And just look at what Francis asked for. It's so simple it's almost shocking. No actors to play Mary and Joseph, no costumes, no script, just a manger, a feeding trough, some hay, and 2 live animals. That's it. He wanted to get back to the most basic, humble pieces of the original scene.
When Christmas night finally came, you have to imagine the scene. It must have been breathtaking. People from all over the area started showing up, lighting up the dark forest with torches and candles. His biographer wrote that the forest itself seemed to sing along with them. It was this massive, joyful pilgrimage to a cave.
And this right here? This is where it all happened. This fresco is actually painted inside that very same cave in Greccio to remember that night. The cave itself was totally transformed. It became, as his biographer put it, a new Bethlehem.
This quote just nails it, doesn't it? By focusing on the simplest things, Francis was making a huge statement. He was elevating these virtues. He wasn't just putting on a show about a historical event. He was showing everyone what he believed was most important in the world.
Okay, but here's something that is absolutely crucial to understand. What happened that night in Greccio was not a Christmas pageant. It wasn't a play like we think of one today. It was something way, way deeper.
You see, a play is for an audience, right? This was for the people who were there. A play tells a story, but this was an act of worship. The whole point wasn't to entertain anyone. It was to have a direct, real encounter with the mystery of Christmas.
In fact, this was a formal church service. Francis, who was a deacon in the church, he actually sang the gospel. He gave a sermon about the humility of Jesus, calling him the poor king. And then, most importantly, a priest celebrated a full Christmas Mass right there in the cave.
And this might be the most powerful detail of the entire story. The Mass was celebrated right there, over the manger. That simple feeding trough for animals became the altar. The physical and the spiritual, the hay and the holy, they all just merged into one.
The whole experience was so intense, so profound, that it was followed by what people described as a miracle. John, Francis's friend, claimed he actually saw Francis reach into the manger and awaken a child who looked like he was asleep or even lifeless. And the meaning was crystal clear. Francis was reawakening the living memory of Christ in people's hearts, especially for those whose faith had kind of gone dormant.
So what happens after an incredible night like that? How does this one deeply personal act of worship in a remote Italian cave
turn into a tradition celebrated by millions and millions of people all over the world.
Well, the idea was just too powerful to be contained. It spread fast. People were totally captivated by this physical, tangible way of connecting with the Christmas story. Within just a few generations, making these little nativity scenes became this beloved custom that eventually just circled the entire globe.
And get this, the legacy was immediate and, well, kind of mystical. People actually collected and saved the hay from that very first manger. They believed it held a special kind of holiness, and records from the time claim it brought healing to sick animals and even helped women through difficult childbirths.
So this year, when you see a nativity scene, doesn't matter if it's super simple or incredibly elaborate, try to remember that original impulse. It all started with this one simple desire: to close the gap of time, to take a story from a faraway land in a distant past and make it feel present, immediate, and totally real.
And that really leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? St. Francis wasn't content to just remember a story, he wanted to experience it. So the question his story kind of asks us 800 years later is, what does it really mean to engage with the traditions we think we know? What happens when we try to see them and feel them with our own eyes?